Mer is being devoured by dark water. Only Ren, a young prince, can stop it by finding the lost 13 treasures of Rule. At his side is an unlikely but loyal crew of misfits. Back, the evil pirate lord Blood, who will stop at nothing to get the treasures for himself. It's high adventure with the Pirates of Dark Water.
Listen up, because I'm about to tell you about one of the most ambitious animated shows of the 90s that you probably forgot existed, but shouldn't have. The Pirates of Dark Water was supposed to be the Star Wars of fantasy animation. Instead, it became one of the most expensive disasters in Hanna-Barbera history. But here's the thing, the show wasn't bad. In fact, it was too good for its own survival. So what actually happened? How does a show with stunning animation, A-list voice talent like Tim Curry and Peter Cullen, and critical praise end up canceled after just 21 episodes, with its story completely unfinished? Well, in this video, I'm going to reveal the real story behind Pirates of Dark Water's catastrophic failure. And trust me, it's not what you think. We're talking about corporate takeovers, $500,000 per episode budgets, and a toy line that completely bombed. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this show, which should have been a massive franchise, ended up as nothing more than a cult classic that still haunts 90s kids to this day. You'll see how it was literally doomed from the moment Turner Broadcasting signed the acquisition papers. But first, let me paint you a picture of just how ambitious this thing actually was, because you need to understand the vision before you can appreciate the tragedy. The vision. So picture this. It's 1991, and Saturday morning cartoons are dominated by toy commercials disguised as shows. You've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, Transformers, all designed to sell action figures first, tell stories second. Everything is episodic. Everything resets at the end of each episode. And everything is safe and predictable. Then David Kirshner walks into Hanna-Barbera with this wild idea. What if we made a serious fantasy adventure series? Like, actually serious. Continuous storyline, real stakes, complex characters, serialized storytelling where if you miss an episode, you're actually lost. The whole 9 yards. And here's where it gets interesting. They actually went for it. Hanna-Barbera, the studio known for cost-cutting and limited animation, decided to bet big on this one. The premise was killer. Prince Ren's father, King Primus, is dying from this corrupting substance called dark water that's literally consuming their world of Mer. And this isn't just some environmental hazard. The dark water is semi-sentient. It's alive. It's evil. It corrupts everything it touches, and it's spreading across the entire planet. Before he dies, the king tells Ren about the 13 treasures of Rule, ancient artifacts that are the only things capable of stopping the dark water from destroying everything. These treasures are scattered across the world, hidden, lost, and guarded by who knows what. So Ren has to sail across this alien ocean world on a ship called the Wraith, gathering a crew and hunting down these treasures before the dark water consumes the entire planet. It's high-stakes, serialized storytelling, which was basically unheard of for American animation at the time. And the crew? You've got Ayaz, this greedy ex-pirate who's basically Han Solo, if Han Solo was even more of a scoundrel. The guy is motivated purely by treasure and self-interest, but he's got a heart buried somewhere under all that greed. There's Tula, an independent ecomancer who can control nature and communicate with animals. She's not a damsel in distress. She's a full-fledged member of the crew with her own powers and agency. And Niddler, this monkey bird creature who's equal parts comic relief and surprisingly useful when things get dangerous. Oh, and they're being chased by pirates, monsters, and this semi-sentient evil substance that wants to consume everything. Every episode, they're searching for the next treasure, dealing with new threats, and the dark water is always there, always spreading, always threatening. This wasn't your typical Saturday morning fare. This was Hanna-Barbera trying to create the next big fantasy franchise. They even called it the Star Wars of fantasy and animation. Internally, they saw this as their ticket to creating something that could compete with the big boys. Something that could spawn movies, merchandise, theme park rides, the works. The ambition was real. The vision was clear. They wanted to prove that American animation could tell sophisticated, ongoing stories just like Japanese anime was doing, But here's what nobody tells you about ambition. It's expensive. Really, really expensive. The money problem. So let's talk about what really killed this show, because it wasn't the quality. The animation was stunning, and I mean that literally. This was Hanna-Barbera's most expensive show ever produced. Not just expensive, the most expensive in the studio's entire history. Each episode cost approximately $500,000. In early 90s money for a Saturday morning cartoon. Let me put that in perspective for you. Most cartoons at the time were using what's called limited animation, basically cutting corners everywhere to keep costs down, reusing animation cycles, keeping backgrounds simple, minimizing the number of unique frames. That's how Hanna-Barbera had always operated. It's literally how they built their empire. Shows like The Flintstones and Scooby-Doo were profitable because they were cheap to produce. But Pirates of Dark Water, they went the opposite direction. They used roughly twice as many animation cells as their competitors. We're talking about fluid character movement, detailed backgrounds, complex action sequences with multiple characters moving independently, elaborate special effects for the Dark Water itself. This was premium stuff. And here's the kicker. They had to, because they were trying to compete with the new standard that Batman the Animated Series was about to set. If you remember, Batman completely changed the game for what American animation could look like. The bar for quality animation was rising fast, and Pirates of Dark Water was trying to jump over it. But there was a massive problem with this strategy. They didn't have an established IP to fall back on. Batman had decades of comics, multiple movies, and a massive built-in fanbase. People knew who Batman was before they ever turned on the TV. Pirates of Dark Water was starting from scratch. They had to build an audience while spending $500,000 per episode. That's a recipe for disaster right there. You're spending like you're an established franchise while trying to prove you deserve to be one. But it gets worse. Much worse. See, the show launched in February 1991 as a 5-part miniseries called Dark Water on Fox Kids. It did well enough that ABC picked it up for a full season. They even made some changes. Got Frank Welker to replace Roddy McDowall as the voice of Niddler. Did some reanimation. Added and cut some scenes. 13 episodes aired from September to December 1991. Things were looking promising. The critics loved it. The animation community was impressed. Fans were getting invested in the ongoing quest. This could actually work. But then something happened that would seal the show's fate forever. And it had nothing to do with the quality of the show itself. In 1991, the exact same year Pirates of Dark Water premiered, Turner Broadcasting System bought Hanna-Barbera. Now, you might think, hey, that's great. More money, more resources, bigger budgets, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Turner didn't buy Hanna-Barbera because they wanted to make expensive new shows. They bought it because they wanted the back catalog. See, Turner was launching this new thing called Cartoon Network in 1992, and they needed content. Lots of it. Cheap content that was already paid for and could be run 24/7 without spending another dime on production. Shows like The Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, The Jetsons, Yogi Bear, that's what they wanted. Stuff they could run on repeat forever. The acquisition was about asset utilization, not creative ambition. So here comes Pirates of Dark Water, this insanely expensive passion project that's hemorrhaging money every single episode. And the new corporate overlords are looking at the books going, you're spending how much per episode? For a show that doesn't even have a proven audience yet? The directive changed overnight. Turner wanted efficiency. They wanted to maximize the value of existing assets. They wanted cost control and predictable returns. They wanted to launch a cable network, not fund risky animated experiments. Pirates of Dark Water was the exact opposite of all of that. It was expensive, unproven, and required a long-term commitment to tell its complete story. In the new corporate environment, it was a liability. And you could see the impact immediately. Season 2 got greenlit, but you can tell something changed. Only 8 episodes. That's it. And they weren't even on a major network anymore. They got relegated to first-run syndication, which is basically TV purgatory. For those of you who don't remember, first-run syndication meant the show aired on different local stations at different times in different markets. There was no consistent schedule, no way to build appointment viewing, no way for fans to know when the next episode would air in their area. It was a death sentence for a serialized show that required viewers to watch every episode in order. The episodes aired sporadically from November 1992 to May 1993. And the whole time, you could feel the show struggling against the new reality. The production quality was still there, but the support wasn't. And then, nothing. May 8th, 1993. The last episode aired. And that was it. The show just stopped. No finale, no resolution, no explanation, no to be continued. Just over. Prince Ren had collected 8 of the 13 treasures. 5 more to go. The quest was incomplete. The story was unfinished. The dark water was still spreading. Everything the show had been building toward for 2 years was left hanging. And that was it. Show over. Quest abandoned. Story unresolved. The toy disaster. But wait, you're probably thinking, what about the toys? Didn't every 90s cartoon make bank on toys? Couldn't the merchandise save it? Oh, they tried. Hasbro made an action figure line, and it completely, utterly bombed. Here's why. They couldn't figure out who the target audience was. And this is crucial to understanding why the show failed financially. Think about it. The show was too mature and serialized for young kids who just wanted simple good guys versus bad guys action. Little kids didn't want to follow a complex, ongoing quest. They wanted to smash their toys together and make explosion noises. But the Pirates of Darkwater toys required you to understand the lore, the characters, and the ongoing story. But it was still a cartoon, so older kids and teens didn't take it seriously. They weren't going to buy action figures for a Saturday morning show. That was kid stuff. It fell into this weird middle ground where nobody was buying the toys. Meanwhile, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was printing money. G.I. Joe was printing money. Transformers was printing money. Those toy lines knew exactly who they were for and what they were selling. Simple characters, simple conflicts, simple play patterns. You didn't need to watch the show to play with the toys. Pirates of Darkwater? The toys just sat on shelves collecting dust. Retailers started discounting them, then clearancing them, then sending them back to Hasbro. And here's the brutal truth about 90s animation economics. If your toys didn't sell, your show was dead. That's how the business model worked. The show was basically a 22-minute commercial for the toy line. The networks didn't pay enough in licensing fees to cover production costs. The real money was supposed to come from merchandise. If the toys failed, there was no financial justification to keep making the show. Period. End of story. So you've got this perfect storm brewing. Expensive production costs that are 2 to 3 times higher than comparable shows. Corporate ownership that wants efficiency over ambition and is focused on launching a cable network. Inconsistent broadcast scheduling that made it impossible to build a loyal audience for a serialized show. And a toy line that's failing to generate the revenue needed to offset those massive costs. Something had to give. And what gave was the show itself. The decision was purely financial. Ted Turner himself reportedly looked at the numbers and said, "This show was too expensive to justify." When the guy who owns the company says it costs too much, that's it. You're done. The unfinished legacy. Here's what really stings about the whole thing. Pirates of Darkwater was good. Like, genuinely, objectively good. The world building was incredible. The planet Mer felt alive and dangerous. Every island they visited had its own culture, its own threats, its own mysteries. The dark water was this genuinely creepy, semi-sentient threat that added real stakes to everything. You could feel the danger. You could feel the urgency of the quest. The characters had depth and growth. Ren started as this naive prince and grew into a real leader. Ayaz slowly became less selfish. Tula's powers developed. These weren't static characters. They evolved over the course of the series. Critics loved it. Fans loved it. Even Cartoon Network, years later when they ran reruns, would include bumpers that basically said, "Yeah, we know it doesn't have an ending. Sorry about that." They acknowledged the elephant in the room. But the story was never finished. Ren never collected all 13 treasures. The dark water was never stopped. The quest was abandoned mid-journey. And you know what's wild? The show lived on in weird ways because the IP still had value even after cancellation. Marvel Comics did a series that continued the adventures. Sunsoft made 2 different video games. One for Super Nintendo that was a side-scrolling brawler, and one for Sega Genesis that was a platformer RPG hybrid. Both came out in 1994, after the show was already canceled. That's how much faith they had in the property. And get this, the Genesis game actually provided a resolution of sorts to the quest. The final boss fight and ending gave players the closure that the TV show never did. If you wanted to know how the story ended, you had to play a video game. Fans literally recommend the Genesis game to this day as the only way to get narrative closure. That's how desperate fans were for an ending. They'd take it in any form they could get it. To this day, there are online petitions asking for the show to come back. Fan sites are still active. People still talk about it on Reddit and forums. There are YouTube videos analyzing what went wrong. The cult following is real and dedicated. Warner Bros. Discovery, which now owns the property through the Turner acquisition chain, sells the series through digital purchase on Apple TV, Amazon Video, and Fandango at Home. They released the complete series on DVD in 2010 through their manufacture-on-demand program. So they know there's still interest. They know people still want this. But it remains dormant. A property with potential, just sitting there, unfinished. So here's the thing that really gets me about Pirates of Darkwater. It was a show that was ahead of its time, but trapped in the wrong era. Everything that killed it in the 90s, serialized storytelling, high production costs, niche appeal, mature themes, dark fantasy setting, those are the exact things that make shows successful today. Pirates of Darkwater would absolutely thrive today. Put it on Netflix with a proper budget and creative freedom. It would find its audience. The dark fantasy genre is huge now. Look at the success of The Witcher, Game of Thrones, and House of the Dragon. People binge watch serialized content. Animation is taken seriously as a medium for mature storytelling. The stigma is gone. A show about a prince sailing across an alien ocean world, fighting pirates and monsters, searching for magical artifacts to stop a semi-sentient evil substance from consuming reality, that's a Netflix original waiting to happen. That's a prestige animated series. That's the kind of thing that would get articles written about it, that would trend on social media, that would build a passionate fan base. But in 1991, it was too expensive, too serialized, and too niche, and too ambitious for the broadcast model that existed. The economics didn't work. The distribution model didn't support it. The merchandise strategy failed. The corporate priorities shifted at exactly the wrong time. And that's the tragedy of it all. The creators did everything right creatively. They made a quality show with strong writing, great animation, excellent voice acting, and compelling storytelling. But none of that mattered when the business fundamentals didn't work. But here's the silver lining. Pirates of Darkwater proved that audiences wanted this kind of content. The cult following that exists to this day shows that there was real value in what they created. The fact that people are still talking about it 30 years later, still petitioning for its return, still recommending it to new viewers, that proves the creative vision was sound. They just couldn't figure out how to make the economics work in 1991. They were making a 2020 show in the early 90s. And who knows? Maybe someday, someone at Warner Bros. Discovery will look at the streaming numbers, see the continued interest, and decide to revive it. Give it the ending it deserves. Finish the quest for the 13 Treasures of Rule. Bring back the world of Mur with modern animation and a proper budget. Until then, it remains one of the great what-ifs of the 90s animation. A show that was too good for its own survival. A cautionary tale about ambition, timing, and the brutal economics of the entertainment industry. Now, if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most ambitious failures in animation history, do me a solid and hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it. It really does help the algorithm push this video to other people who grew up with these shows and want to understand what happened to them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.